I'm Melanie, 30 years old, and I had dreamed about my wedding day since childhood. Growing up with loving parents, I never imagined they'd miss the most important day of my life. But as I stood ready to walk down the aisle, the empty seats in the front row told the devastating truth. They had chosen my fiance's sister's birthday celebration instead of witnessing my vows. The makeup artist's work streamed down my face as I broke down, but that moment taught me who truly stood beside me. Before I share how my perfect day turned into both heartbreak and unexpected triumph, let me know where you're watching from. And hit subscribe to join our community of real-life stories that heal. Being an only child meant I grew up as the center of my parents' world. My mom Susan and dad Frank doted on me throughout my childhood in our suburban Chicago home. They attended every school play graduation, an important milestone. We took family vacations to Florida every summer, building sandcastles and collecting seashells. Those memories made what happened later even more painful. I met Jason at my college friend Lily's housewarming party 3 years ago. He spilled his drink on my favorite white blouse, and instead of getting angry, I laughed at his mortified expression. Jason insisted on buying me dinner to apologize, and that awkward meeting blossomed into the most genuine relationship I'd ever experienced. He worked as an architectural designer while I managed a local bookstore. Our shared love of historical buildings and classic literature created an immediate bond. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Jason had a quiet confidence that balanced my more anxious nature. When he looked at me, I felt truly seen. My parents adored Jason from our first dinner together. My dad appreciated Jason's knowledge of baseball statistics, while my mom loved his willingness to help with dishes after meals. Everything seemed perfect until I met Jason's family, particularly his younger sister Amanda. Amanda was 28, lived at home with their parents, despite her successful marketing job, and had been the family princess her entire life. The first time we met, she barely acknowledged my presence, speaking directly to Jason as if I wasn't there. When I complimented her earrings, she responded with a dismissive, "Thanks, they were expensive," before turning back to her brother. Despite this initial coldness, I made consistent efforts to connect with Amanda. I remembered her favorite coffee order, asked about her work projects, and even helped plan her previous birthday party. Nothing seemed to crack her icy exterior. Instead of warming up, her behavior became increasingly entitled. At Thanksgiving dinner, 6 months into our relationship, Amanda announced she had quit her job to find herself and would need financial support. Without hesitation, her parents, William and Dorothy, promised to cover her expenses for as long as necessary. When Jason mentioned our plans to save for a house, his parents changed the subject back to Amanda's journey of self-discovery. The most troubling development, however, was watching my own parents gradually fall under Amanda's spell. It began innocuously enough, with my mom and Dorothy exchanging recipes and becoming shopping companions. Soon my parents were receiving invitations to dinners at Jason's family home, even when we weren't included. The shift became apparent when my parents missed my bookstore's anniversary celebration because Amanda had invited them to her apartment warming party. "We already committed to Amanda," my mom explained over the phone. "You understand, sweetie, we'll catch your next event." The disappointment stung, but I brushed it aside as a one-time occurrence. That pattern continued. My parents started canceling our traditional Sunday brunches when Amanda had impromptu gatherings. They began referring to her as such a special girl and sharing stories of her accomplishments during our limited time together. When I expressed my confusion to Jason, he sighed deeply. "Amanda has always had this effect on people," he explained, squeezing my hand. "She makes people feel special for being allowed into her circle. My parents created this monster by never saying no to her." Despite these challenges, Jason remained my steadfast supporter. When his family dynamics became overwhelming, he always prioritized my feelings and created boundaries. "You're the family I'm choosing," he would remind me. "Nothing is more important than that." After 2 years together, Jason proposed during a weekend trip to Lake Michigan. We found a quiet spot on the shore at sunset, and he nervously pulled out a vintage sapphire ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "She was the only person who ever stood up to Amanda," he joked as he slid it onto my finger. The engagement brought a surge of excitement. For a brief moment, both our families seemed genuinely happy for us. My parents hosted an engagement dinner, and even Amanda offered a stilted congratulations. As we began discussing wedding plans, I foolishly hoped that my special day would finally put me first in everyone's priorities. "Your wedding will be absolutely perfect," my mom promised, hugging me tightly. "Nothing could keep us from making it everything you've dreamed of." Those words would come back to haunt me in ways I never could have imagined. We set our wedding date for June 15th, giving ourselves a full year to plan. The date held special significance as it marked the anniversary of our first real date. I created detailed spreadsheets, started a wedding Pinterest board, and purchased every bridal magazine available. My excitement was palpable. Both sets of parents initially showed enthusiasm. My mom teared up while browsing through wedding dress styles, and my dad started researching venues. Jason's parents offered to contribute to the catering costs. For a moment, everything felt harmonious. That harmony lasted exactly 3 weeks. During a family dinner where we were discussing potential venues, Amanda cleared her throat dramatically. "I should probably mention that I want to do something really special for my 28th birthday next year. I'm thinking a destination weekend, maybe in Napa Valley." The table fell silent as everyone calculated the timing. Her birthday fell on June 16th, the day after our wedding. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart," Dorothy said, completely missing the conflict. "We could all use a nice wine country getaway." I exchanged glances with Jason, whose jaw had tightened noticeably. Before he could speak, my mother jumped in with surprising enthusiasm. "What a lovely idea, Amanda. I've always wanted to visit the wineries there. We should start looking at accommodations soon to get the best rates." The casual way everyone ignored the obvious wedding conflict left me speechless. Jason wasn't as restrained. "Mom, Dorothy, you realize Amanda's birthday party would be literally the day after our wedding, right? People would have to leave our reception early to make flights to California." Amanda's eyes widened with practiced innocence. "Oh my goodness, is that the same weekend? I completely forgot your exact date. But 28 is a significant birthday for me. It's when Saturn returns in your astrological chart. It's basically cosmic destiny." This ridiculous explanation might have been laughable if not for the serious nods from both sets of parents. From that moment forward, every wedding planning session somehow transformed into a discussion about Amanda's birthday extravaganza. When we met with our families to review venue options, Amanda hijacked the conversation with questions about wineries that could accommodate her party. While discussing flower arrangements, she interrupted to show everyone the custom birthday invitations she was designing. Even our menu tasting became about Amanda's food allergies and preferences for her celebration. After 3 months of this pattern, Jason finally confronted his sister during a family dinner. "This constant undermining has to stop, Amanda," he said firmly. "You've had 27 birthdays and will have many more. Melanie gets one wedding day." Amanda's eyes immediately filled with tears. "I can't believe you'd attack me like this," she sobbed. "I'm just excited about my special day too. Why are you being so selfish?" The resulting argument created a tension that lingered for weeks. Jason's parents suggested he apologize for upsetting his sister, while my parents awkwardly avoided taking sides. The incident drove a deeper wedge between our families. I decided a direct approach with my parents might help. I invited them to lunch, just the three of us, hoping to reconnect and express my feelings. "I've noticed you seem more invested in Amanda's birthday than in helping with wedding plans," I said carefully. "It's starting to hurt my feelings." My mother reached across the table and patted my hand. "Oh, sweetie, that's not true at all. Your wedding is absolutely our priority. We're just being supportive of Jason's family, too. That's what joining families is all about." My father nodded in agreement. "Your big day comes first, pumpkin. You have nothing to worry about." Those reassurances rang hollow when they missed my first dress fitting the following week. My mom had promised to be there, but called that morning with a vague excuse about a prior commitment. Hours later, Amanda posted photos of them all at a wine tasting event, planning her birthday weekend. The wedding planning continued with mounting stress. Our venue coordinator quit unexpectedly, requiring us to rebuild that relationship from scratch. Our first choice photographer got double booked. The florist warned about potential supply issues with my chosen flowers. Through each crisis, my best friend Rachel became my rock. When my mom missed the cake tasting, Rachel was there, with thoughtful opinions and genuine excitement. When I needed help addressing invitations, Rachel organized a small group of friends to help while my mother attended Amanda's hair color consultation. Jason's frustration with his sister and parents grew alongside my own disappointment. "I feel like I'm losing my family," he confessed one night, "but the way they're treating you makes me wonder if that's such a loss." As the wedding date approached, my anxiety intensified. I had trouble sleeping constantly, waking from nightmares about empty chairs and forgotten vows. The wedding I dreamed of was being overshadowed by family drama I never anticipated. The final dress fitting was the breaking point. My mother had promised repeatedly she wouldn't miss it. When she didn't show, I called repeatedly with no answer. Later that evening, I saw Dorothy's social media post showing my parents helping Amanda choose an outfit for her birthday weekend extravaganza. They all looked happier than I'd seen them in months. I cried myself to sleep that night with Jason holding me and promising we would create our own happiness regardless of our family's behavior. Little did I know how prophetic his words would become. The week before our wedding arrived with a flurry of last-minute details. The weather forecast showed perfect June sunshine. Our guest count was finalized at 85 people. The welcome bags for out-of-town guests were assembled. Despite the ongoing family tension, I allowed myself to feel cautiously optimistic. That optimism shattered during Sunday dinner at Jason's parents' house, exactly 6 days before the wedding. Amanda waited until the main course was served before making her announcement. "I have exciting news," she said, clapping her hands together. "I've finalized my birthday party plans. The resort in Napa could only accommodate us if we arrive Friday night, so I've scheduled the main celebration for Saturday afternoon." The table fell silent. Jason set down his fork with a deliberate calmness that belied the anger I could see building. "Let me understand this," he said slowly. "You've scheduled your birthday party to begin while we're still at our wedding reception." Amanda's expression shifted to rehearsed confusion. "The ceremony will be over by then, right? And everyone important to me will have plenty of time to make it to Napa for Saturday." "Everyone important, including our parents?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Dorothy jumped in quickly. "We're looking at flight options. There's an evening departure that might work if the reception doesn't run too late." My mother nodded enthusiastically. "And we could potentially take the same flight. Frank already checked, and there are still seats available." The casual way they discussed potentially missing part of our wedding reception felt like a physical blow. Jason stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is absolutely unacceptable," he said firmly. "Amanda, you've deliberately created this conflict, and I want to know why." "I've already paid deposits," Amanda wailed. "Everything was booked up for the following weekend. This wasn't intentional." A family meeting was hastily convened in the living room. For 2 hours, we went around in circles. Amanda cried about financial losses and ruined birthday dreams. Jason's parents suggested we cut our reception short to accommodate everyone's travel plans. My parents proposed splitting up so one could stay at the wedding while the other flew to Napa. Through it all, no one seemed to grasp the fundamental issue: our wedding day. The most important day of our lives was being treated as an inconvenient scheduling obstacle. We left without resolution, the tension thick enough to suffocate. Jason and I barely spoke during the drive home, both processing the horrifying realization that our families might actually choose Amanda's birthday over our wedding. The next few days passed in a blur of final arrangements. Neither set of parents brought up the conflict again, which I naively interpreted as them choosing to prioritize the wedding. The devastating call came at 10:23 p.m. the night before our wedding. I was in my apartment doing final preparations as Jason and I had decided to follow tradition and spend the night apart. My phone lit up with my father's contact photo. "Hey, Dad," I answered cheerfully, calling with last-minute father of the bride jitters. The pause before he spoke told me everything. "Melanie, sweetheart," he began, his voice unnaturally measured. "I need to tell you something, and I'm asking you to try to understand." My hand began to tremble. "What is it?" "Your mother and I won't be able to make the ceremony tomorrow. Amanda's chartered a private plane for her celebration, but the departure time is strict. We're going to try our best to make it to the reception, even if we arrive late." The world tilted sharply. I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter to steady myself. "You're missing my wedding ceremony for Amanda's birthday party." The words felt surreal leaving my mouth. "It's not just a birthday party, honey. It's an important milestone for her. She's been going through some things you don't know about. She really needs family support right now." When my mother took the phone, her justification cut even deeper. "Amanda's been having anxiety attacks about turning 28, sweetie. She's afraid of being alone. She specifically asked if I would be there as a maternal figure since she and Dorothy sometimes clash. You understand, right? You've always been so independent and strong." I couldn't respond. My throat had closed completely, strangled by betrayal and disbelief. After promising they'd call tomorrow, they hung up, leaving me in deafening silence. I sank to the kitchen floor, wedding checklist still clutched in my hand, and broke down completely. Guttural sobs tore from my chest as the magnitude of their betrayal washed over me. The parents who had raised me, who had promised to always be there, had chosen someone else's child over their own daughter on her wedding day. An hour later, there was frantic knocking at my door. Rachel had driven over immediately after I'd managed to choke out the basics over the phone. She gathered me from the floor and guided me to the couch, tissues in hand. "We should cancel everything," I whispered between sobs. "How can I walk down the aisle alone? How can I stand in front of everyone knowing my own parents chose not to come?" Rachel held me firmly by the shoulders. "Listen to me, Mel. This wedding is happening. Not for them, but for you and Jason. The people who truly love you will be there. The others have shown you exactly who they are, and maybe that's a gift in disguise." Jason called shortly after, his voice tight with fury after hearing from his parents. They had offered a tepid apology, but confirmed they too would be attending Amanda's party, planning to make only a brief appearance at our reception if timing allowed. "I'm so sorry, Mel," he said, his voice breaking. "I never imagined they would actually go through with this. Do you want to postpone? We can tell everyone tomorrow." Despite my earlier breakdown, a strange clarity was emerging through the pain. "No," I said firmly. "I want to marry you tomorrow, Jason, with or without them." That night, instead of the traditional family dinner, Rachel organized an impromptu gathering of my closest friends. They surrounded me with love, practical support, and enough wine to dull the sharpest edges of pain. We revised the ceremony plans, eliminating the father-daughter dance and adjusting the processional. I fell asleep that night with a strange mixture of heartbreak and determination. The wedding would continue, but on my terms now. The people who showed up would be the foundation of my new life, and perhaps that was more valuable than tradition after all. The morning of my wedding day arrived with golden June sunshine that felt almost mocking in its perfection. As I sat in the bridal suite being made up, the absence of my mother left a cavernous silence. Rachel stepped seamlessly into the void, adjusting my veil, offering champagne, and capturing photos of moments that should have included family. With each passing hour, the empty chairs in the family section of the ceremony space became increasingly conspicuous. The wedding coordinator discreetly asked about the seating arrangement, and I numbly instructed her to leave the spaces empty. "Some guests couldn't make it," I explained, the understatement burning my throat. The wedding venue looked like a fairy tale despite everything. White roses and baby's breath adorned the outdoor garden where we would exchange vows. Wooden chairs lined the grassy aisle with ivory ribbons marking the family section. A string quartet played softly as guests began to arrive and take their seats. From the window of the bridal suite, I watched people greeting each other, finding their places, and admiring the flower arrangements. The sight of my empty family section made my stomach clench painfully. Traditional processional music began signaling it was time. With no father to escort me, I prepared to walk alone. Jason's uncle Robert, who had always been kind to me, approached the bridal suite door. "I heard there might be a beautiful bride needing an escort," he said gently. "If you'd allow me the honor, I'd be proud to walk with you." Grateful tears threatened my carefully applied makeup. I nodded, unable to speak. With Uncle Robert's steady arm supporting me, I began the walk down the petal-strewn aisle. My ivory gown with vintage lace detailing swished softly against the grass. The guests stood turning to watch with smiles and camera phones. I started confidently focusing on Jason's figure waiting ahead. His eyes locked onto mine with so much love it nearly overwhelmed me. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Then halfway down the aisle, my gaze inadvertently shifted to the left, where 4 empty chairs stood in stark contrast to the packed rows around them. My parents' absence hit me anew with physical force. The chairs seemed to grow larger, mocking me with their emptiness. In my mind, I could see my parents and in-laws sitting at Amanda's birthday celebration, laughing and raising glasses while I walked alone. My steps faltered. The quartet's music seemed to distort and fade. Uncle Robert's arm tightened supportively around mine, but it wasn't enough to stop the wave of grief that crashed over me. My breath came in short gasps. Tears spilled over, streaking through my makeup and dropping onto my bouquet of white roses. The murmuring from guests grew as my breakdown became obvious. Some looked away uncomfortably, while others whispered behind their programs. The wedding coordinator stepped forward uncertainly, clearly unsure whether to intervene. Breaking with all tradition, Jason rushed forward from his position at the altar. In his tailored gray suit with my favorite blue tie, he crossed the remaining distance between us in seconds. Without hesitation, he took my trembling hands in his. "Mel," he whispered, his voice for my ears alone. "Look at me, just me." I raised my tear-filled eyes to his steady gaze. "I need you to know something right now," he continued. "Everyone who truly matters is already here. The empty chairs don't define us. They define the people who chose not to sit in them." My breathing began to steady as he gently wiped a tear from my cheek. "Today marks the beginning of our real family," he said firmly. "The one we choose and the one that chooses us back every single day." As if on cue, Rachel appeared at my side, quickly fixing my makeup with practiced hands. "You're stunning," she whispered, "and so incredibly loved." What happened next transformed everything. Without prompting, several guests rose from their seats and moved to stand around us in a protective circle. My college roommate Lisa, my colleagues from the bookstore, Jason's friends from architecture school, even distant cousins who had made the effort to attend. "We're all here for you," someone called out. "You're not alone," added another voice. The physical manifestation of support steadied me. These people had shown up. They had prioritized our day. They were the family we were choosing. In that moment of clarity, I made a decision. I turned to the officiant who had approached our impromptu circle. "We'd like to change the processional," I announced, my voice growing stronger. "Jason and I will walk the rest of the way together." The traditional separate entrance of bride and groom no longer felt right. We were facing this day as partners, and we would walk into our marriage side by side. With murmurs of approval from our guests, the circle opened. The quartet, quick to adapt, began playing anew. With Jason's hand firmly in mine, we walked the remaining distance together. The empty chairs no longer dominated my vision. Instead, I saw the faces of people who had chosen to be present on our day. When we reached the flower-covered arch, our vows took on deeper meaning than I could have anticipated. The promises to stand by each other through difficulty had already been tested and proven before we even spoke them. "I choose you today and every day forward," Jason said, his voice carrying across the garden, "no matter who else chooses differently." During the ring exchange, my phone buzzed from within Rachel's pocket, where she was safeguarding it. Later, she would show me the text from my mother. "Ceremony running longer than expected here. Might not make reception after all. So sorry, sweetie. Amanda sends her love." And later still, during dinner, social media notifications would reveal smiling photos of both sets of parents at a winery raising glasses with Amanda, who wore a tiara proclaiming birthday queen. The timestamp coincided exactly with our first dance. But in that moment, standing before our chosen family, I silenced the outside world. I turned off notifications, handed my phone to Rachel, and made the conscious choice to be fully present with the people who had shown up. Our reception began with an undeniable undercurrent of tension. Guests who had witnessed my breakdown exchanged concerned glances as we entered the fairy light-draped barn that served as our reception venue. The conspicuously empty family table near the front of the room silently acknowledged the absence of both sets of parents. Jason squeezed my hand as we took our seats. Rather than dwelling on who was missing, he immediately redirected attention to who was present. Rising with his champagne glass, he began his speech by breaking from the traditional thank you to parents. "Today, Melanie and I want to express our deepest gratitude to everyone in this room," he said, his voice strong and clear. Your presence here isn't just appreciated, it's profoundly meaningful. You've shown us what true support looks like." He paused, taking a steadying breath. "Some people who we expected to be here made different choices today. That's painful, but it's also clarifying. It's shown us exactly who we can count on as we build our life together." Raising his glass higher, he concluded, "To our real family, the ones sitting in this room right now, thank you for choosing us today." The toast received emotional applause, creating a solidarity among our guests that began to shift the atmosphere from awkward to intimate. People who had been strangers at the ceremony were now united in their support for us. When Rachel rose for her maid of honor speech, she somehow struck the perfect balance between acknowledging reality and celebrating joy. "I've known Melanie since our freshman year of college," she began, "when she let me borrow her umbrella during a downpour, and then invited me to get coffee until the rain stopped. That's who she is, always making room for others, even when it's inconvenient." Her voice softened. "Today, some people failed to make room for her. But look around this room. So many others did. And that's the thing about Melanie and Jason, they inspire that kind of loyalty because they give it so freely themselves." As Rachel concluded, other unexpected speakers began to rise. My bookstore assistant manager shared stories of my kindness to customers. Jason's college roommate recounted his unwavering support during difficult times. My distant cousin spoke about reconnecting after years and feeling immediately welcomed. These spontaneous testimonials filled the void left by traditional family speeches, creating something more authentic in their place. By the time dinner was served, the mood had transformed from sympathetic discomfort to genuine celebration. The wedding coordinator approached as we finished our meal. "It's time for the father-daughter dance," she whispered uncertainly. "Would you prefer to skip it, or—" Before I could respond, Jason's Uncle Robert stood. "If the bride has no objections, I'd be honored to stand in." But another idea was forming. I shook my head and took the microphone. "Instead of a traditional parent dance," I announced, "Jason and I would like to invite everyone to join us on the dance floor. Today, we're celebrating the family we've chosen and who has chosen us." The DJ understood immediately, cueing up an upbeat song that filled the dance floor within seconds. What might have been an awkward spotlight dance became a joyful group celebration. Friends and extended family surrounded us, creating a circle of support that moved to the music. Throughout the evening, we abandoned other traditions that no longer felt authentic. Instead of a formal cake cutting with parents looking on, we invited our youngest guests to join us, making it playful rather than ceremonial. The bouquet toss became a group photo opportunity with everyone gathering around. As the night progressed, I found myself at the bar getting a glass of water when I overheard two guests talking. "Have you ever seen someone so surrounded by love?" one said, looking in my direction. "I know her parents aren't here, but honestly, I think she has more genuine support than most brides I've seen." The observation hit me with unexpected force. She was right. Looking around the reception, I saw people who had traveled distances, rearranged schedules, and shown up not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. My parents' absence was a gaping wound, but around that wound, something beautiful had formed. Later, during a quiet moment, I found myself standing with Jason overlooking the dance floor, now filled with our friends. "I need to make a toast," I said suddenly, taking a champagne glass from a nearby table. The DJ lowered the music as I raised my glass. "I want to thank each of you for being here today. This morning I thought I was walking into a broken wedding day. Instead, you've shown me what true family looks like. It's not always the people who share your blood or name. It's the people who show up, who make space for your joy and your pain, who choose you repeatedly even when it's difficult." My voice grew stronger with each word. Today, I'm not focusing on empty chairs. I'm celebrating the full ones, the people who rearrange their lives to witness our commitment. That's the foundation we're building our marriage on, and I couldn't ask for anything stronger. The applause that followed felt healing, transformative. For the remainder of the reception, I danced, laughed, and celebrated with complete presence, the earlier breakdown fading into a necessary part of the journey, rather than defining the day. As the reception wound down, another tradition changed. Instead of a family send-off, our closest friends gathered to shower us with flower petals as we departed. And rather than parents fussing over last details, Rachel and a group of friends helped gather gifts and ensure everything was properly concluded. In our hotel suite that night, I finally checked my phone to find hollow apologies from both sets of parents, accompanied by excuses about flight delays and Amanda's emotional needs. There were also dozens of messages from guests expressing their love and support. "We can deal with all of this tomorrow," Jason said gently, taking the phone and setting it aside. "Tonight belongs to us." As I fell asleep in my new husband's arms, I felt the strange mixture of profound loss and unexpected gain. The family I had been born into had failed me on this critical day, but the family we were creating had shown its strength immediately. There was both grief and hope in that realization. Tears and peace intermingled as I drifted to sleep. I woke the morning after our wedding with swollen eyes but a lighter heart. Jason was already awake, ordering room service breakfast and arranging our honeymoon departure. We had planned a 2-week trip to Portugal, now seeming even more necessary as a buffer between wedding drama and real life. "Good morning, Mrs. Richards," he said, kissing my forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Like I survived an emotional hurricane," I admitted, "but also strangely peaceful. Does that make sense?" He nodded, sitting beside me on the bed. "Complete sense. Yesterday stripped away all the pretense. We know exactly where we stand with everyone now." Our phones had accumulated more messages overnight. My parents had sent a longer text apologizing again and suggesting brunch before our flight departed. Jason's parents had left a voicemail proposing a similar meeting to clear the air. We declined, both unwilling to dilute the boundary-setting power of their absence. There were also messages from Amanda finally acknowledging our wedding with a casual, "Hope you guys had fun yesterday. My party was amazing. Sorry, you missed it." The stunning lack of awareness confirmed everything we already knew about her character. We departed for Portugal without family farewells, another tradition abandoned by necessity. The honeymoon became a healing cocoon, allowing us to process the wedding day from a distance. Walking the cobblestone streets of Lisbon, exploring coastal villages, and drinking port wine in ancient cellars, we gradually shifted our focus from what we had lost to what we had gained. "I keep thinking about Uncle Robert stepping up to walk with me," I said one evening as we watched the sunset from our hotel balcony, "and Rachel handling everything my mom should have done. They didn't have to do any of that." Jason nodded thoughtfully. "That's what keeps hitting me, too. Everyone who showed up made an active choice to support us. There's something powerful about that kind of chosen family." 2 weeks of distance gave us perspective and strengthened our resolve. By the time we landed back home, we had developed clear boundaries for moving forward with both sets of parents. Reality hit quickly. Our apartment was filled with wedding gifts needing acknowledgement and a stack of mail, including handwritten notes from my parents and in-laws, all expressing remorse without true accountability. They wrote about miscommunications and unfortunate timing, rather than acknowledging their deliberate choices. 3 days after our return, Jason's parents invited us to dinner to welcome you properly into married life. Amanda would also attend. They mentioned casually, as if her presence were unremarkable after everything that had happened. The invitation triggered immediate anxiety. "I don't think I can face them yet," I admitted to Jason, "especially not Amanda." "Then we don't go," he said simply. "Or we go on our terms." After discussion, we decided to attend, but with conditions: we would meet in a neutral restaurant rather than their home. We would stay only for the main course, and we would be prepared to leave if boundaries weren't respected. Jason communicated these terms clearly to his parents, who reluctantly agreed. The dinner began with uncomfortable small talk. Dorothy commented on my tan from Portugal, while William asked generic questions about the hotel. Amanda sat examining her manicure, occasionally checking her phone under the table. When appetizers arrived, Jason's father cleared his throat. "We want to apologize again for the way things worked out with the wedding. The timing was just so difficult with Amanda's event." The casual phrasing made my blood pressure spike. Before Jason could respond, Amanda interjected. "It was really unfortunate," she said, reaching for her wine glass. "If I'd known earlier about your exact wedding date, I might have been able to reschedule my birthday weekend, though the deposits were non-refundable." The victim narrative was the final straw. Something inside me shifted a lifetime of polite accommodation, giving way to necessary truth-telling. "Amanda, I said calmly, setting down my fork. "My wedding date was set a full year in advance. You deliberately scheduled your birthday celebration to conflict with it. Let's not pretend otherwise." The table fell silent. Amanda's mouth opened in practiced outrage, but I continued before she could speak. "To both sets of parents," I said, my voice steady but firm. "What happened wasn't a scheduling conflict or bad timing. It was a choice. You chose Amanda's 28th birthday over your daughter's wedding and your son's wedding. That choice has consequences for our relationship moving forward." William attempted to interrupt, but Jason raised his hand. "Melanie's right. We're not here for excuses or revisionist history. We're here to establish how we move forward, if that's even possible." I took a deep breath and continued. "We need real acknowledgement of what happened. Not sorry things worked out this way, but sorry we made a choice that hurt you deeply on your most important day. Without that, any relationship moving forward will be built on dishonesty." Amanda's face had flushed with anger. "This is ridiculous. You're being so dramatic about one day. Not everything revolves around your wedding." "You're right, Amanda," I replied evenly. "Not everything revolves around my wedding, just like not everything revolves around your birthday. The difference is I never expected it to." Dorothy attempted to diffuse the tension. "We love you both very much. We just got caught in the middle of a difficult situation." Jason shook his head firmly. "There was no middle, Mom. There was a clear choice between your son's wedding and your daughter's birthday party. You chose Amanda as you always have." The conversation continued in this vein, with Amanda growing increasingly defensive, and her parents offering weak justifications rather than genuine remorse. When the main course arrived, it was clear no real progress would be made that evening. As we prepared to leave, I made one final statement. "We're going to need time and space. When you're ready to really acknowledge what happened and take responsibility, we'll be open to talking again. Until then, we'll be limiting our contact." We walked out with dignity, leaving them sitting in stunned silence. In the car, Jason reached for my hand. "I'm so proud of you. Of us." "Do you think they'll ever really understand?" I asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "But it's not our job to make them understand. Our job is to protect the family we're building together." A similar conversation with my parents followed days later with similar results. Excuses about keeping peace between families and Amanda's fragile emotional state replaced genuine accountability. We established the same boundaries with them, initiating a period of limited contact that was painful but necessary. The months that followed required constant reinforcement of these boundaries. Invitations were declined, guilt-inducing messages were met with consistent responses, and attempts to minimize the wedding day betrayal were calmly but firmly corrected. As the holiday season approached, we made the difficult decision to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas with friends rather than navigate family tension. Rachel hosted a chosen family Thanksgiving, while a group of our wedding guests organized a Christmas gift exchange that became far more meaningful than obligatory family gatherings. The conventional family holidays were replaced with new traditions built around sincere connections rather than obligation. And with each gathering, the pain of family estrangement diminished slightly, replaced by appreciation for the community we were building. 6 months after our wedding day, Jason and I sat on our apartment balcony, with coffee, reflecting on everything that had changed. The painful absence at our wedding had catalyzed a complete restructuring of our understanding of family and obligation. "I was thinking about our wedding album," I said, warming my hands on my coffee mug. "At first, I was dreading looking at it, seeing all those empty chairs in the photos." "And now?" Jason asked. "Now I'm realizing how many of those photos are filled with genuine joy. The people who showed up weren't there out of obligation. They were there because they truly wanted to celebrate us." The wedding photographs had indeed captured something unexpected. In place of traditional family portraits were images of friends rallying around us, improvised group dances, and candid moments of connection. The album told the story not of who was missing, but of who had chosen to be present. Our relationship with both sets of parents remained complicated. After 3 months of limited contact, they had begun making more sincere efforts at reconciliation. My mother had started sending cards that acknowledged the hurt they'd caused rather than minimizing it. Jason's father had called to apologize specifically for prioritizing Amanda's birthday over our wedding, without qualifications or excuses. These were small steps, but significant ones. We responded with cautious openness, agreeing to occasional short visits, while maintaining clear boundaries. Amanda remained unrepentant, still believing herself the wronged party in the situation. We accepted that some relationships might never heal, and focused our energy elsewhere. The counseling sessions we'd begun shortly after returning from our honeymoon had helped enormously. Our therapist specialized in family estrangement and had guided us through the complex grief of redefining family bonds. Family is both who you're born to and who you choose, she reminded us often. Sometimes the chosen family becomes the most meaningful. Rachel had become an even more central figure in our lives. Sunday brunches at her apartment became a standing tradition, sometimes including other friends from the wedding. These gatherings gradually evolved into a found family that supported each other through job changes, health scares, and everyday challenges. During this period, I reconnected with my father's sister, Aunt Patricia, who had traveled from Seattle for our wedding despite her own strained relationship with my parents. She had witnessed their absence and reached out afterward with understanding that could only come from shared experience. "Your parents' choices reflect their limitations, not your worth," she told me during a long phone conversation. "I learned that the hard way with your father years ago. Creating distance isn't abandonment, it's self-preservation." Her validation helped heal parts of me that still questioned whether I had overreacted or been too harsh in my boundary setting. She became another unexpected addition to our chosen family, sending thoughtful care packages and checking in regularly. We also began building relationships with Jason's extended family members, who had disagreed with his parents' decision to miss the wedding. His cousin Michael and wife Sarah had been vocal in their disapproval, and now invited us regularly to their family gatherings, creating a bridge to relatives without the toxicity of direct parental involvement. As our first anniversary approached, we decided against the traditional celebration with parents. Instead, we planned a weekend away with the friends who had supported us through the wedding drama. No gifts, no formal dinner, just quality time with people who had proven their loyalty. The holiday season had brought tentative signs of change from our parents. Christmas gifts arrived with cards expressing genuine regret rather than defensive justification. My father called without my mother on the line, admitting that missing the wedding was the biggest mistake of my life, and acknowledging the damage it had caused. Jason's mother sent an email recognizing her enabling of Amanda's behavior throughout their lives. These were small steps toward potential healing, but we approached them with caution. True reconciliation would require sustained change, not momentary remorse. We responded with polite appreciation while maintaining our boundaries. Amanda remained the wild card in the family dynamic. After several failed attempts to regain control through dramatic announcements and manufactured crises, she had begun to realize that her power over family decisions had diminished. Without Jason and me as audience members to her performance, some of the oxygen had been removed from her manipulations. The most profound change, however, was within ourselves. I no longer defined family exclusively through blood relation. Jason had stopped expecting his parents to suddenly transform into the supportive figures he had always needed. Together, we had built something more stable than what we had lost. One evening, as we reorganized our living room bookshelves, I came across our wedding album. Instead of avoiding it as I had for months, I opened it deliberately sitting beside Jason on the couch. "Look at this," I said, pointing to a photo taken during our revised reception dance. The image showed us surrounded by a circle of friends, everyone's arms raised in celebration. "This is what family really looks like." Jason squeezed my hand. "I was so worried about you that day when you broke down on the aisle. But now I think that moment was necessary. It broke something open that needed to break." He was right. The public acknowledgement of that pain had allowed for authentic connection in its place. By abandoning the performance of a perfect family, we had created space for genuine relationships to flourish. As I turned the pages of the album, I focused not on the conspicuously absent family members, but on the faces of people who had stood witness to our commitment, despite having no obligation to do so. Friends who had traveled across the country, distant relatives who had prioritized our day colleagues who had become confidants. You know what I've learned through all this, I said, closing the album gently. True family stands beside you on your hardest days, blood relation optional. Jason nodded his eyes, reflecting the same hard-won wisdom. And sometimes the family you build yourself is stronger than the one you were born into. As we move forward, we carry both the pain of betrayal and the gift of clarity it provided. We approach family relationships, both blood and chosen, with greater intentionality and less obligation. We recognize toxic patterns more quickly and value authentic connection more deeply. The empty chairs at our wedding will always be part of our story, but they no longer define it. Instead, our narrative is shaped by who filled the other chairs, who stood beside us when standing there was difficult, and who continues to show up day after day in big and small ways. What's your experience with family showing up when it matters most? Have you ever had to create boundaries with relatives who consistently let you down? Leave a comment below sharing your story. If this resonated with you, please hit subscribe and the like button to support more real conversations about family dynamics. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And remember that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we build ourselves.